The morning sun cast long shadows across the red soil of New Busan, a small human colony sitting on the edge of explored space. Captain Dae-hyun stood on the observation deck of the colony's main administrative building, watching the distant mountains through the reinforced glass. He was a man in his early 40s, with short dark hair beginning to gray at the temples and hands that bore the calluses of someone who had spent years handling weapons and equipment. His uniform was neat but worn, practical rather than decorative. Behind him, the door slid open and Lieutenant Hana walked in, carrying a data tablet. She was younger, maybe 28, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Sir, they're here," she said quietly. "The sensors picked up their ship about 10 minutes ago. They'll be landing soon." Dae-hyun nodded slowly. The Veltari. They had received word 3 days ago that representatives from the Veltari Empire would be visiting New Busan. The message had been polite but carried an unmistakable tone of superiority. The Veltari were one of the most powerful species in this sector of the galaxy, and they knew it. "Tell Ji-won we're ready," Dae-hyun said, "and make sure the security team is in position." "Nothing aggressive, just visible." Hana nodded and left. Dae-hyun remained at the window, watching as a sleek vessel descended from the sky. It was beautiful in an alien way, all smooth curves and shimmering metal that seemed to shift colors in the sunlight. It landed in the open area that served as the colony's spaceport, settling down without a sound. The landing ramp extended, and figures began to emerge. Dae-hyun had seen pictures of the Veltari, but seeing them in person was different. They were tall, perhaps 7 feet on average, with skin that looked like polished crystal. Light seemed to reflect off them in strange ways, creating rainbow patterns. They moved with fluid grace, and they wore what appeared to be formal robes that shimmered like their ship. Dae-hyun left the observation deck and made his way to the greeting area. Ji-won was already there, the colony's administrator. She was a woman in her mid-30s with a calm demeanor and diplomatic instincts that had served the colony well. She gave Dae-hyun a brief nod as he took his position beside her. The Veltari delegation entered the building. At their head was Commander Veltar, who was slightly taller than his companions. His crystalline face was difficult to read, but his body language spoke of confidence bordering on arrogance. "Greetings," Ji-won said in the common galactic language that most species used for trade and diplomacy. "Welcome to New Busan. We are honored by your visit." Veltar's voice was strange, like chimes resonating through crystal. "Administrator Ji-won, Captain Dae-hyun, we appreciate your welcome." He paused, looking around the room with what might have been curiosity or disdain. "Your colony is quaint." Dae-hyun felt his jaw tighten slightly, but he kept his expression neutral. Ji-won smiled diplomatically. "We are a young settlement, yes, but we are growing. Please, shall we discuss the purpose of your visit?" They moved to a conference room. As they walked, Veltar's gaze fell on the human security personnel stationed at intervals. Each carried a rifle slung over their shoulder, standard colonial defense equipment. Veltar paused by one guard, examining the weapon with obvious interest. "These are your weapons?" he asked, and there was definitely amusement in his tone now. "Kinetic projectile launchers? How traditional." The guard remained silent and professional. Dae-hyun stepped forward. "They serve their purpose, Commander." "I'm sure they do," Veltar said. His companions made sounds that might have been laughter. "We have studied human technology, of course. You still use chemical propellants and metal projectiles. Fascinating that your species has reached the stars while clinging to such primitive methods." In the conference room, the real discussion began. Ji-won brought up holographic displays showing the colony's current operations and future plans. Veltar listened with apparent patience, but Dae-hyun could sense something beneath the diplomatic facade. Finally, Veltar spoke. "The Veltari Empire has surveyed this world extensively. The mineral deposits here are substantial. The resources could be better utilized under proper management." "Proper management?" Ji-won asked carefully. "The Veltari Empire would like to establish mining operations here. We would, of course, allow your colony to continue existing. Under our supervision, the room went quiet. Dae-hyun felt anger flash through him but kept it controlled. Ji-won's diplomatic mask slipped slightly. "Commander, this world was legally claimed by Earth and her colonies 12 years ago. We have full rights under galactic law. Laws written before your species joined the galactic community," Veltar said smoothly. "Laws that were designed for established civilizations, not newcomers who barely understand the technology they inherited." We understand our technology perfectly well, Dae-hyun said, his voice low. Veltar turned to him with what might have been a smile. Do you? Captain, your species has been in space for barely a century. The Veltari Empire has dominated this sector for over 3,000 years. We have mastered energy weapons, gravitic shields, faster than light travel beyond your comprehension, and yet you carry rifles that would not look out of place in your primitive history. He gestured to the sidearm on Dae-hyun's belt. Tell me, Captain, do your guns have kickback? Do they still push against you when fired, wasting energy and reducing accuracy? How quaint. Dae-hyun met the alien's crystalline gaze. Yes, Commander. Our guns have kickback. We've learned to manage it. How admirably primitive. Veltar turned back to Ji-won. We are not here to conquer, Administrator. We are here to bring order and efficiency. You have 48 hours to consider our proposal. We believe that cooperation would be in everyone's best interest. And if we decline? Ji-won asked. Veltar spread his hands in what might have been a shrug. Then we would be forced to demonstrate why the Veltari Empire has remained dominant for so long. We would prefer not to. Your species is new to the galaxy, and we would hate for your first major lesson to be about the consequences of overestimating your capabilities. The meeting ended shortly after. As the Veltari delegation left, Hana moved beside Dae-hyun. Sir, are they really threatening us? Yes, Dae-hyun said quietly. They think we're too primitive to matter. Too weak to resist, are we? Dae-hyun watched the Veltari ship lift off, its engines silent and efficient. That depends on whether they're as smart as they think they are. Call a meeting of the Defense Force. We have 48 hours to prepare. Prepare for what? To show them that sometimes old methods work just fine. The Colonial Defense Headquarters was a simple concrete building at the edge of New Busan's main settlement. Inside the briefing room, Dae-hyun stood before a holographic map of the surrounding territory while his team assembled. Hana sat near the front, her attention focused. Beside her was Minho, the chief engineer and heavy weapons specialist, a stocky man with strong hands and a practical mind. Suna, the colony's best scout, leaned against the back wall with her arms crossed. And there was Taemin, young but steady, who served as their medic and backup rifleman. Ji-won entered last, looking tired. The council met for 3 hours, she said. They're divided. Half want to negotiate. Give the Veltari something to make them leave. The other half want to fight. And you? Dae-hyun asked. I want what's best for the colony. She sat down heavily, but I'm not sure what that is. The Veltari have advanced technology. Their ships, their weapons, their shields. Everything we've heard says they've never lost a military engagement. There's a first time for everything, Minho said. Suna shook her head. It's not that simple. I've been reading the intelligence reports. The Veltari use plasma weapons. They can melt rock, vaporize metal. Their personal shields can stop almost any energy weapon. When they go to war, they don't lose soldiers. They just walk through their enemies. Then we don't let them walk, Dae-hyun said. We studied their technology too. Those shields are designed for energy weapons, plasma, lasers, particle beams. That's what everyone in this sector uses. But that's not what we have. Hana caught on first. Kinetic weapons, bullets. Exactly. Dae-hyun brought up a technical display. Energy shields work by dispersing incoming energy across their surface. They're incredibly effective against plasma and lasers. But a physical projectile, a solid piece of metal moving at high velocity, the physics are different. The shield has to stop the physical impact, not just disperse energy. Will it work? Ji-won asked. I don't know, Dae-hyun admitted, but it's our best chance. The Veltari think we're primitive. They mock our weapons because they don't understand them. That gives us an advantage. The discussion was interrupted by an alarm. Hana checked her tablet and looked up sharply. The Veltari ship is returning. They're landing now. They're early, Ji-won said. We still have over 30 hours. They rushed to the spaceport. The Veltari ship had already landed, and Veltar was descending the ramp with a smaller group this time. These Veltari wore different clothing, more fitted and practical. Armor, Dae-hyun realized. They were soldiers. Administrator Ji-won, Veltar called out. Captain Dae-hyun, I hope we have not arrived at an inconvenient time. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow, Ji-won said carefully. I have brought a proposal that will save us all considerable time and potential unpleasantness. Veltar gestured to his soldiers. The Veltari Empire does not wish to simply take what we want. We prefer to prove our right to it. I propose a trial of combat. Combat? Daehyun stepped forward. A small engagement. 5 of your finest soldiers against 5 of mine. We will fight in neutral territory. The canyon lands north of your colony. If you win, the Veltari Empire will recognize your claim to this world completely. We will leave and never return. If we win, you will accept our terms for resource management. And if we refuse the trial? Ji-won asked. Then we return to the original timeline and the consequences that follow. Veltar's tone made it clear what those consequences would be. Ji-won looked at Daehyun. He could see the question in her eyes. He gave a small nod. We accept, Ji-won said. When? Tomorrow at dawn. The Red Knife Canyons. Bring your best warriors, Captain. We shall see if human courage can compensate for human primitiveness. After they left, the team gathered again. It's a trap, Suna said immediately. They wouldn't offer this unless they were certain they'd win. Of course it's a trap, Daehyun agreed. But it's also an opportunity. They're overconfident. They think their technology makes them invincible. 5 against 5, Minho said thoughtfully. Small unit tactics. The canyons are rough terrain, lots of cover. That works for us. Can we actually win? Taemin asked quietly. Daehyun considered the question. I think we can, but we need to prepare. Hana, what's our weapons inventory? They spent the next hour in the armory. Hana moved between the racks with practiced efficiency, selecting and checking each weapon. Standard rifle, 7.62mm. Good stopping power, reliable. For you, sir, I'd recommend the 338 Lapua Magnum. Longer range, better penetration. And for me? Minho asked. Hana smiled slightly and went to a locked cabinet at the back.
She pulled out a massive rifle nearly 5 feet long.
Barrett M82 50 caliber anti-materiel rifle. We have 3 of them. Brought from Earth for dealing with large wildlife. Never used them yet. Minho lifted the weapon with obvious appreciation. This will do. They were laying out ammunition when the door opened and Veltar walked in. Daehyun turned surprised. Commander, this is a restricted area. I merely wish to observe your preparations. Veltar moved along the racks, examining the weapons with that same amused expression. So many variations. So much mechanical complexity. Tell me, do you not find it tiresome to carry ammunition? Our weapons require no such burden. They draw power from compact energy cells that last for months. He picked up one of the rifles, hefting it awkwardly. And these still push back when fired, yes? The recoil forces the weapon off target. You must constantly compensate fighting against your own tools. How do you ever hit anything? Hana stepped forward. Training, Commander, practice. We learn to manage the recoil, use it even. It becomes part of the shooting technique. How admirably dedicated to an obsolete method. He set the rifle down. When our plasma weapons fire, there is no kickback, no wasted energy. The bolt of plasma travels exactly where we aim every time. Perfect accuracy, perfect power. Sounds impressive, Daehyun said neutrally. It is. Veltar moved toward the door, then paused. I look forward to tomorrow, Captain. It will be educational for your species. Sometimes one must learn through defeat that there are better ways to approach the universe. After he left, Minho let out a long breath. I really want to shoot him. Tomorrow, Daehyun said. Tomorrow you can shoot all of them. Let's get ready. They worked through the night, checking equipment, reviewing maps of the Red Knife Canyons, planning tactics. Suna, who had spent months exploring the area, pointed out key positions, natural choke points, places where the rock formations created natural fortifications. They'll expect us to fight at range, Daehyun said. Their shields should give them confidence. They'll advance expecting us to fall back or try to hide. What if the shields do stop our bullets? Taemin asked. Then we improvise, Daehyun said. But I don't think they will. I think the Veltari have been fighting energy weapons for so long they've forgotten what it's like to face something different. As dawn approached, the team gathered their gear. Each rifle was cleaned and checked multiple times. Ammunition was distributed, extra magazines secured. They wore simple combat fatigues, nothing fancy, just practical clothing designed for rough terrain. Ji-won came to see them off. Be careful, she said. The whole colony is counting on you. We know, Daehyun said. We won't let them down. They loaded into transport vehicles and headed north toward the Red Knife Canyons. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the red rocks in shades of orange and gold. It was beautiful country, harsh but striking. The Veltari were already there, waiting. Their soldiers stood in a perfect line, their crystalline armor gleaming. They carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy, elegant designs that looked more like art than instruments of war. Veltar stepped forward. Captain Daehyun, are you ready to begin your lesson? Daehyun checked his rifle one last time, feeling its familiar weight, the solid reality of metal and wood and carefully engineered components. We're ready, Commander. Let's see who learns what today. The red knife canyon stretched out before them like a maze carved by ancient water and wind. Tall rock formations rose from the desert floor, creating narrow passages and hidden chambers. The stone was deep red and orange, striped with darker bands of mineral deposits. Perfect ambush country, Daehyun thought as he studied the terrain one last time. A neutral observer, a member of one of the smaller galactic species, stood on a hovering platform above the combat zone. His voice echoed across the canyon as he explained the rules. The engagement would last until one team surrendered or was unable to continue. Lethal force was permitted. Medical teams stood ready on both sides. The boundaries of the combat zone extended 3 kilometers into the canyon system. Combatants, take your positions, the observer called out. The Veltari moved first. Their 5 soldiers advanced in formation, shields already active. Daehyun could see the air shimmer around them, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Their plasma rifles glowed with ready power. They moved with absolute confidence, not bothering to take cover or move tactically. Why would they? Their shields had protected them through dozens of conflicts. Daehyun's team melted into the canyon. Suna led the way, moving low and fast, using every rock and shadow. They had studied this terrain, planned their positions. Hana split off to the right, climbing to a high position with a clear field of fire. Minho took the center with his massive rifle, settling behind a boulder that would give him protection and a shooting angle. Taemin stayed with Daehyun, ready to provide medical support or additional firepower as needed. The Veltari advanced deeper into the canyon. Daehyun watched them through his scope, steady and patient. Not yet, let them come further. Let them get confident. They're not even scanning properly, Suna's voice came through the radio, barely a whisper. They're just walking in like they own the place. Good, Daehyun replied. Hana, you have the first shot. Wait for my signal. The minutes stretched out. The Veltari reached the center of the ambush zone. One of them pointed at something, perhaps tracks in the sand. They were beginning to realize the humans weren't simply going to stand and fight in the open. Now, Daehyun said quietly. Hana's rifle cracked, the sound echoing off the canyon walls. The report was sharp and loud. Nothing like the soft hum of energy weapons. Through his scope, Daehyun saw the result. The Veltari soldier's shield lit up as it detected the incoming threat. But the shield was designed to spread energy across its surface. A bullet wasn't energy. It was mass, traveling at nearly 3,000 feet per second. The shield slowed it slightly, distorted around it, but the round punched through and struck the soldier in the chest. The Veltari went down hard, his crystalline blood spraying. The other 4 froze in confusion. Target down. Hana's voice was calm. Shield penetration confirmed. The Veltari reacted, but not fast enough. They had trained to fight enemies with energy weapons, enemies who would reveal their positions with bright plasma bolts or laser beams. They didn't know how to fight enemies who used smokeless powder and waited in silence. Minho fired next. The .50 caliber round from his Barrett was twice the size of a normal bullet, carrying devastating energy. It hit a Veltari soldier who had moved behind a rock for cover. The rock exploded into fragments, the round passing through it as if it were paper. The soldier was thrown backward, his armor cracked and broken. Now the Veltari started firing back. Plasma bolts lit up the canyon, superheated gas that melted stone wherever it struck. But they were firing at positions where the humans had been, not where they were now. Daehyun's team was already moving, using the terrain, never staying in one place. One of the Veltari soldiers was smarter than the others. He called out orders in his own language, and the remaining 3 formed a defensive position, shields overlapping. They began to advance more carefully, checking corners, watching for movement. Daehyun signaled Suna. She was the fastest, the most agile. While the Veltari focused on where the shots had come from, Suna circled around their flank. She moved like smoke, barely disturbing the sand beneath her feet. She came up behind a boulder just 10 meters from the Veltari position. At this range, she could see details of their armor, the way their shields flickered slightly as they maintained the energy field. She raised her rifle, a standard 7.62 millimeter, and aimed carefully. 3 quick shots. The first Veltari never knew what hit him. The rounds took him in the side where his armor was thinner and he collapsed. The others spun, searching for the threat. And that's when Daehyun and Taemin opened up from their position. Crossfire. The fundamental tactic that had worked for human soldiers for centuries. The Veltari couldn't cover both directions at once. One tried to return fire toward Daehyun and took 3 rounds from Suna. The other managed to get his plasma rifle up and fired. The bolt of superheated plasma hit the boulder Suna was using for cover. The rock glowed white-hot and began to melt, forcing her to roll away. The Veltari tracked her movement, preparing another shot, when Minho's Barrett spoke again. The .50 caliber round hit the Veltari center mass. Even with his shield and armor, the sheer kinetic energy was too much. He was lifted off his feet and slammed into the canyon wall behind him, where he slid down and didn't move. That left one. The last Veltari soldier stood alone, surrounded by the fallen forms of his teammates. His shield flickered as he spun in a circle, trying to track 5 different threats. He fired wildly, panic overriding his training, plasma bolts scorching the air but hitting nothing. "Hold fire," Daehyun called out. He stood up from cover, rifle raised but not firing. "It's over, surrender." The Veltari soldier stared at him. For a moment, Daehyun thought he might try to fight on. Then slowly, the soldier lowered his weapon and deactivated his shield. He knelt in the sand, defeated. The medical teams rushed in. The Veltari soldiers were wounded but alive. Their crystalline bodies tough enough to survive what would have killed many species. The human team regrouped, checking their equipment and each other. No one had been hurt. 5 down in under 10 minutes, Minho said, shaking his head. "I thought this would be harder. They didn't know how to fight us," Hana said. She was checking her rifle, making sure the barrel hadn't been damaged. Their whole tactical doctrine is built around energy weapons and shields. They've never had to deal with kinetic projectiles. Suna nodded. "Did you see how they moved?" "They just walked in the open, depending on their shields. Against plasma weapons, that works. Against bullet," she trailed off, the point obvious. Taemin was quiet, looking at the wounded Veltari soldiers. They really believed they were invincible. "They were," Daehyun said. "Against the enemies they fought before. But we're different. They forgot that there's more than one way to fight a war." The observer descended on his platform. He looked shaken, his small form trembling slightly. The trial is concluded. The human team is victorious. The Veltari Empire must honor the terms of the agreement. But Daehyun was watching the Veltari ship in the distance. Veltar had been observing from there, watching his team fall apart. The ship's ramp was lowering, and a single figure was descending. Even from a distance, Daehyun could see the elaborate armor, more ornate and advanced than what the soldiers had worn. "Something's wrong," Hana said, following his gaze. Veltar strode toward the canyon, his armor gleaming in the morning sun. His shield wasn't just active, it was visibly powerful, a shimmer in the air like a heat mirage. He carried a weapon that was larger than the standard plasma rifles, more ornate, clearly custom-made. The observer's voice crackled with distress. "Commander Veltar, the trial is complete. The terms must be honored." "The trial was for my soldiers," Veltar's voice rang out, amplified somehow. "It did not include me. I am invoking command privilege. I will face the human team personally." "That's not legal," Jiwon's voice came over Daehyun's radio. She was watching from the colony. "The rules were clear." "He doesn't care about rules," Daehyun said quietly. "He can't accept that we won. His pride won't let him." Veltar reached the edge of the canyon and stopped. "Captain Daehyun, your primitive weapons performed better than I expected. You exploited a weakness in our standard equipment. Clever for humans. But you have not faced me. My personal armor, my personal shield. They are beyond anything my soldiers carried. Face me now, and I will show you the true power of the Veltari Empire." Daehyun looked at his team. They were tired but ready. Hana was already checking her ammunition. Minho was settling back into position with his Barrett. Suna had disappeared again, moving to a new vantage point. "Your call, Captain," Hana said softly. Daehyun smiled slightly. "We've come this far. Let's finish it." Veltar stepped into the canyon like a warrior from ancient legends, his armor gleaming with technological sophistication that made the standard Veltari equipment look primitive by comparison. The shield around him wasn't just visible, it was radiant, pulsing with power. Each step he took left small marks in the sand, as if the ground itself recognized his presence. This armor has protected me through 50 campaigns, Veltar announced, his voice carrying across the canyon. It has never failed. My shield can absorb enough energy to power your entire colony for a week. My weapon can level buildings. And you think to oppose me with your crude metal projectiles? Daehyun studied the alien commander through his scope. The shield was definitely more powerful than what the soldiers had used. It extended further from the body, the energy field more stable and dense. And that armor looked thick, probably reinforced at every vital point. Hana, he said quietly over the radio. What do you think? There was a pause as she calculated angles and distances. The shield is stronger, but it's still the same basic technology. It disperses energy, not kinetic force. The armor, though, that's different. Looks like composite materials. Maybe ceramic layered with metal. Designed to absorb impact. Can we penetrate it? Another pause. I don't know, sir. Not with standard rounds. Maybe the .50 caliber, but that armor looks serious. Then we'll have to try harder than standard. Daehyun made a decision. Fall back to the equipment cache. We need something bigger. The team retreated deeper into the canyon to where they had stored additional supplies. Veltar followed slowly, not rushing, confident in his superiority. He fired occasionally. Plasma bolts that turned sand to glass and made stone run like water. The display of power was impressive and intentional. At the cache, Minho opened a sealed container and pulled out a weapon that made his Barrett look small. It was a rifle designed for extreme long-range engagement, chambered in .416 Barrett, a round developed for hunting the most dangerous game on Earth. Later, it had been adopted for military use against hardened targets. This is it, Minho said. This is the biggest thing we have. If this doesn't work, nothing will. Hana took the weapon, hefting it carefully. It was heavy, over 30 pounds fully loaded. The scope alone cost more than most rifles. I'll take the shot, she said. I have the most experience with extreme range precision. Are you sure? Daehyun asked. She nodded. This is what I trained for, sir. Besides, someone needs to make him eat those words about kickback. While Hana moved into position, climbing to a high point nearly 800 meters from where Veltar was advancing, the rest of the team set up a distraction. They needed to keep the commander's attention away from her position, give her time to set up the perfect shot. Daehyun, Minho, Suna, and Taemin spread out, firing from multiple positions. Their rounds struck Veltar's shield, each impact causing it to flare brightly, but the shield held, absorbing the kinetic energy and dispersing it. The commander laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Is that all? Your bullets cannot harm me. I am protected by technology your species won't understand for another 1,000 years. He returned fire, and now the team understood why he was so confident. His weapon didn't fire single bolts. It fired streams of plasma, continuous beams that swept across the canyon like a burning sword. Where it touched, rock melted and ran like wax. The humans had to keep moving constantly, never staying in one place or they would be incinerated. Taemin almost didn't move fast enough. A plasma beam swept past him, close enough that he felt his skin burn from the heat. He rolled behind a boulder that began to glow red from the energy striking it. This isn't working, Suna said over the radio, breathing hard. He's too strong. Keep him focused, Daehyun replied. Hana, how are you doing? High above, Hana had found her position, a rock outcropping that gave her a clear view of the canyon floor below. She set up the rifle carefully, extending the bipod, checking the scope. The distance was extreme, nearly 800 meters. Wind was minimal today, but she still had to account for bullet drop, for the way the round would arc through the air. She loaded a single .416 Barrett round into the chamber. The cartridge was massive, nearly as long as her hand. The bullet itself was designed to penetrate armor, to deliver devastating energy to a target. Through her scope, she watched Veltar advance. He was toying with her teammates now, hurting them, demonstrating his superiority. He stood in the open, absolutely confident that nothing could hurt him. Target acquired, she said softly. 812 meters. Wind negligible. Clear shot. Take it when ready, Daehyun responded. Hana breathed slowly, letting her heart rate settle. She had done this 1,000 times in training, but never with stakes this high. Never with an entire colony depending on a single shot. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger, feeling the slight resistance. Below, Veltar stopped in a clear area of the canyon. He raised his weapon high, preparing to fire another devastating sweep that would force the humans from cover. You asked if our guns have kickback. he called out mockingly. Such primitive concerns. Such limitations. You will never achieve true greatness while bound by such crude physics. Hana's crosshair settled on the center of his chest, where his armor was thickest but also where a hit would have the most impact. She breathed out slowly, steadily, letting half the air escape from her lungs. The moment between heartbeats, the moment of absolute stillness. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle roared. The recoil slammed into her shoulder with tremendous force. The kickback that Veltar had mocked so thoroughly. The weapon bucked up and back, absorbed by her body position and the bipod. But the force was real and powerful. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Physics that humans had learned to master centuries ago. The bullet left the barrel at over 3,000 feet per second. It crossed 800 meters in less than a second. A piece of carefully engineered metal driven by controlled explosion. It hit Veltar's shield and the shield tried to stop it, tried to disperse the kinetic energy. But there was too much force, too much mass moving too fast. The shield collapsed. The bullet continued through, now slightly destabilized but still carrying enormous energy. It struck Veltar's chest armor, the composite materials that were designed to stop energy weapons and disperse impact. The armor might have stopped a smaller round. It might have deflected a glancing hit, but this was a direct hit from a .416 Barrett at combat distance. The armor shattered. The bullet punched through and exited the other side, carrying fragments of armor and crystalline flesh with it. Behind Veltar, a boulder the size of a transport vehicle exploded. The bullet, still carrying energy after passing through shield and armor and body, struck the rock and shattered it into thousands of fragments. The sound of the impact echoed across the canyon like thunder. Veltar stood for a moment, looking down at his chest. There was a hole, not a burn, not an energy dispersal pattern, but a simple, brutal hole that went completely through his torso. His crystalline blood began to pour out, gleaming in the sunlight. He fell to his knees, then forward onto his face. His weapon fell from his hands, the plasma chamber powering down with a descending whine. The canyon went silent except for the settling of rock fragments from the shattered boulder. Daehyun and his team emerged from cover, weapons ready but not needed. They approached Veltar carefully. The commander was still alive, barely. His crystalline eyes focused on Daehyun as the captain knelt beside him. Medical teams were already rushing in, but everyone could see how severe the wound was. You asked if our guns have kickback, Daehyun said quietly. His voice without triumph or mockery, just stating a fact. They do, because every action has an equal and opposite reaction. That's not a flaw, Commander. That's physics. That's the universe telling us that power has a cost, that force requires force to generate it. He stood up. We learned to master that. We learned to control the kickback, to use it, to build it into our techniques. You thought it was primitive. You thought it was a weakness. But it's just different. Another way of doing things. And today different was enough. Veltar tried to speak, but his voice was weak. How? The armor. The shield. Energy dispersal, Hana said, joining them. She still carried the massive rifle, though she had made it safe. Your shields and armor are optimized for energy weapons. They've probably been refined over centuries to be perfect at stopping plasma and lasers, but you forgot about mass, about metal and velocity and simple kinetic force. The Veltari medical team reached their commander. They worked quickly, their technology far advanced beyond human medicine, but even they looked grim as they assessed the damage. The observer descended again, his small form shaking. The trial is concluded. Commander Veltar is unable to continue. The humans have won. The Veltari Empire must honor all agreements. Daehyun looked at the shattered boulder behind where Veltar had stood. The hole where the bullet had struck was deep, the rock around it fractured and broken, a demonstration of power as clear as any plasma weapon could have provided. Get him to your ship, Daehyun told the Veltari medical team. Save him if you can. As they carried Veltar away, Minho approached Daehyun.
Sir, did you see that boulder?
I saw it. That's going to be a story. The size of that hole. 3 days after the battle, a different Veltari ship arrived at New Busan. This one was larger, more ornate, clearly a diplomatic vessel rather than a military one. Daehyun stood with Jiwon at the landing area, watching as the ramp descended. The Veltari who emerged was older than Veltar, her crystalline skin showing patterns of age that gave her an almost frosted appearance. She moved with dignity and careful grace, and unlike Veltar, there was no arrogance in her bearing. Behind her came an escort, but these were clearly ceremonial rather than threatening. Administrator Ji-won, Captain Dae-hyun, she said in the common language, her voice clear and respectful. I am High Counselor Velshan. I come to fulfill our obligations and to offer formal apologies on behalf of the Veltari Empire. Ji-won stepped forward. High Counselor, you are welcome. Please, shall we speak inside? The conference room had been prepared carefully. This time there was no tension, no veiled threats. Velshan settled into a chair designed to accommodate her larger frame and looked directly at the humans. Commander Veltar survived his wounds, she began. He will recover fully, though it will take time. He has been removed from his position and is facing review by the High Council. His actions dishonored our agreements and endangered our relations with your species. We are glad he survived, Ji-won said diplomatically. Velshan inclined her head. Your mercy reflects well on humanity. You could have let him die. Many would have. She paused, seeming to gather her thoughts. I must be honest with you. The Veltari Empire has dominated this sector for over 3,000 years. In that time, we have grown accustomed to being the superior force. We forgot that superiority is not permanent. We forgot that there are always new ways to solve old problems. She produced a data crystal and placed it on the table. This contains the full recognition of your territorial claims to this world and the surrounding system. No Veltari will challenge your rights here. Additionally, we are offering trade agreements and diplomatic relations as equals, not as superiors to inferiors. Dae-hyun studied the High Counselor. What changed your mind? The battle? Partially, Velshan admitted. But more than that, what we learned from studying what happened. May I speak plainly? Please, Ji-won said. The Veltari Empire has fought dozens of wars. We have never lost. Do you know why? She didn't wait for an answer. Because every species we encountered used energy weapons, plasma, lasers, particle beams. The technology is common throughout the galaxy because it is efficient, powerful, and clean. Over centuries, we optimized everything around it. Our shields, our armor, our tactics, all designed to counter energy-based warfare. She gestured toward Dae-hyun. Then we meet humanity, a species barely a century into space travel, and you still use kinetic weapons, bullets, chemical propellants, technology that most species abandoned centuries ago. We thought you were primitive. We thought you simply hadn't discovered better methods. But we chose this path, Dae-hyun said. We know about energy weapons. We have them. But for many applications, kinetic weapons are simply more practical, more reliable, easier to manufacture and maintain. Exactly, Velshan said. And in doing so, you became the counter to our entire military doctrine. Our shields cannot efficiently stop physical projectiles. Our armor is weak against kinetic impact. Our tactics assume that enemies will reveal their positions with energy signatures. Everything that made us dominant became irrelevant against you. She stood and moved to the window, looking out at the colony. After the battle, I spoke with our top military analysts. They reviewed recordings of the engagement. Do you know what they concluded? That if full-scale war broke out between our species, the outcome would be uncertain. Not because you are more advanced, but because you are different. Your weapons, your tactics, your entire approach to combat is something we are not prepared for. That seems hard to believe, Ji-won said carefully. You have ships, advanced technology, resources beyond what we can match. In space, perhaps we would have advantages, Velshan agreed. Our ships are powerful, but in ground combat, in any situation where your soldiers face ours, the analysts believe you would win more often than not. Your bullets penetrate our defenses, your tactics exploit our assumptions, and most importantly, your soldiers are trained for a type of warfare we have not faced in generations. She turned back to them. That is why I am here. The Veltari Empire does not wish war with humanity. We wish partnership. We wish to learn from you as we hope you might learn from us. Different is not primitive. It is simply different. Over the next hours, they worked through the details of the agreement, territory rights, trade relations, cultural exchange programs. It was comprehensive and fair, nothing like the demands Veltar had made. At one point, Velshan asked, Might I see your weapons training facilities? I am curious about how you manage the recoil that Commander Veltar found so amusing. Dae-hyun led her to the shooting range outside the colony. Hana was there, training with a group of younger colonists. The High Counselor watched as Hana demonstrated proper shooting technique, how to position the body to absorb recoil, how to use the pushback as feedback about the weapon's function. It becomes part of you, Hana explained. The kickback tells you the weapon is working correctly. You learn to feel it, use it, control it. After enough training, it's automatic. Velshan studied the rifles with genuine interest. May I try? Hana hesitated, looking at Daehyun. He nodded. Start her with something light, a .22 maybe. They set up a small rifle and Hana showed Velshan how to hold it, where to place her hands, how to sight down the barrel. The High Counselor's crystalline fingers were different from human ones, but she managed. Press the trigger smoothly, Hana instructed. Don't jerk it. Let the shot surprise you. The rifle cracked. The recoil was minimal, but Velshan still felt it, the weapon pushing back against her shoulder. Downrange, the target showed a hit near the center. Remarkable, Velshan said softly. The feedback is immediate. You feel the power being released? That's exactly right, Hana said. Energy weapons are smooth, almost effortless. But this, you feel every shot. You're connected to it. They spent another hour at the range. Word spread through the colony, and soon a crowd gathered to watch the alien High Counselor learning to shoot human weapons. It became something of a cultural moment, a bridge being built between species. Later, as Velshan prepared to depart, she spoke privately with Daehyun and Jiwon. I will be honest with you both. What happened here will spread across the galaxy. Other species will learn that humanity's kinetic weapons are effective against energy-based defenses. Some will seek to develop similar weapons. Others will seek alliances with you. Is that a problem? Jiwon asked. No, Velshan said. It is simply change. The galaxy has been stable for a long time, perhaps too stable. We all optimized for the same types of conflicts, the same solutions. Humanity reminds us that there are always other paths, other methods. That is valuable. She paused at the ramp of her ship. One more thing. Commander Veltar asked me to deliver a message. He said to tell you that he understands now. About the kickback, about what it means to pay the price for power. He said you were right that it is not primitive, it is honest. After she left, Daehyun and Jiwon stood watching the ship depart. Hana joined them, still carrying her rifle from the training session. Sir, she said, I've been getting messages from other colonies. They want to know about what happened here, about the battle. What are you telling them? The truth. That we won by being different, by using what we know instead of trying to copy what others do. She smiled slightly. And I tell them about the hole. The hole? In the boulder, where my shot went through Veltar and kept going. People want to see it. It's becoming famous. The size of the hole, they keep saying. Daehyun chuckled. I suppose it is impressive. 3 months later, New Busan had changed. The colony had grown as new settlers arrived, drawn by the story of the colony that stood up to the Veltari Empire. Trade ships came regularly, bringing goods and taking away the minerals that the colony mined. More importantly, other human colonies began adopting New Busan's defensive strategies. Training programs focused on tactics that exploited humanity's unique approach to warfare. The old weapons that some had wanted to replace with alien technology were suddenly valued again. Daehyun received a promotion and an offer to help train other colonial defense forces. Hana became a minor celebrity, the soldier who had taken the shot that changed everything. Requests came from multiple species wanting to learn about human weapons and tactics. The Red Knife Canyons became a tourist attraction. The boulder with the massive hole in it, where Hana's bullet had continued through after penetrating Veltar's defenses, was left as a memorial. A marker was placed there with a simple inscription. Here humans prove that different is not primitive, that old methods can counter new problems, that sometimes the answer is not more advanced but more fundamental. One evening, Daehyun stood at that marker looking at the hole. It was impressive, he had to admit. The rock around it was fractured in a spiderweb pattern. The center punched clean through. Jiwon joined him. They're calling us the kinetic colony now. Has a nice ring to it. Better than what they were calling us before.